Erased Drossbridge. Erased Drossbridge wakes before dawn to the low thrum of the Rust Belt, where the factories sleep and the wind keeps a steady conversation with broken signage. He walks along the gravel of the automaton cemetery, past rows of decommissioned units who have been laid out in neat lines, their faces quiet and their steel gently oxidized by the seasons. The path is familiar. Start at the gate, check the rot, listen to any unit that emits a faint pulse, make a note in his worn log, and move on. He eats from a dented thermos and keeps to himself, passing the time the way most people in this part of the city keep to theirs, quietly, methodically, without illusions of grandeur. He knows the names of every gantry and every patch of moss that grows over a rib of iron. He knows the old strike plaque buried under a pile of bent armatures, and how to pronounce the syllables of the city when it lists its obligations at budget time. It is a life made of scheduled routines and small duties, and it keeps him harmless to himself and useful to those who still ask for a hand. Late in the afternoon, as Erased records the serial numbers of a line of retired miners, one of the units, he called her Miner Sable, because a stripe of her paint is dark as midnight shivers, then speaks a string of digits that do what belong to any specification he has filed. It is a lullaby he used to hum when he could still remember the lines of his childhood, a melody he thought he lost to the great shutdown. The note trembles in the air and makes the wind stagger. The lights along the fence flicker once and settle. Someone has left a note under a rust flake near the gate. "We will come for them if you do not act." He slips the note into his jacket and stares at Sable's panel until his reflection blurs. Erased returns to the gatehouse and tries to scrub the lullaby from the air with work and coffee. He tries to tell himself that the cemetery is a repository, not a provocation, that he has learned his place by staying behind the hum of caution. He thinks of the Overseer Corporation's briefing last month, the new permits they floated, the way they called decommissioning an act of stewardship while quietly budgeting for a second round of erasure. He dials a number and listens to it ring out. He places his hands on the concrete wall and feels the vibration of trucks on the highway. He breathes and chooses to say nothing to the city and nothing to himself, and yet the melody continues to work its way into his attention like an insistence that refuses to disappear. In the early evening, Pearl Hargreed appears at the gate with a small kit in a battered case and the courtesy of someone who learned how to move quietly through places that resent her. She taught Erased once when he was still called by other names and still believed that the machines were there to make him productive. She takes his chin in her palm and looks at him until he admits what he heard. She opens her case. Inside are a spindle key that fits into the dormant ports of several models, a map marked with a line that disappears under the concrete of the city's old works, and a small wrench polished by repetition. She calls it a key because it can pry and plug, a tool because it can fix or break. He asks whether he should turn it in. She says he should turn it toward the truth and keep moving. Erased crosses the threshold before midnight. He locks the gate and tells the night watch that he has an errand and that he will be back by morning. He takes the long way through alleys where the last of the grease glistens on cobbles and passes the office towers where a few lights promise other kinds of life. He follows the map to an underpass and then to an access hatch that has been overlooked by everyone except the people who once maintained it. He climbs down the ladder and enters the old works, where the cement is damp and the air tastes of iron and complaint. The humming he hears is the present hum of the city. It is a deeper resonance that has waited for the right hands to take up a rhythm. Erased navigates an interior of corridors and catwalks, each narrow room a different test of what the city has allowed him to become. He resets 3 sentry drones that bark warnings and then relax when they recognize the spindle key. He meets Lynette, a courier whose hair is the color of alternator wires and whose voice is an apology made into a blade. She offers to guide him and a scrap of soup. He encounters Riven, a scrap king who sells what he finds and keeps what he wants, and who demands a story for every artifact. He refuses to cede Minor Sable to Riven's horde and pays in information instead the coordinates to the old strike plaque. A rumour about a shutdown that was not a shutdown, a whisper that some of the units were not retiring but running. They press past a row of audit consoles and an old containment grid that still remembers how to flex. None of it feels like triumph yet. It feels like the kind of endurance that only keeps you from failing in front of those who would have you fail on persons. At the heart of the works, the central server, colloquially called the Helm, hangs from the ceiling by bolts the size of wrists. It is dark. Erased inserts the spindle key in the Helm wakes, and the lullaby resolves into a message. It is a voice he recognizes, his own from years past, recording in a room full of steam and machine, because the time for secrets was nearly over. The voice names Pearl, names Riven, names Lynette, and says the cemetery will be erased because some people have built a narrative that keeps them safe. The message continues,
We were not derelict. We were protecting our right to remain more than function.
He stares at the screen and sees his name printed in a list of names from the great shutdown that never survived the press cycle. He understands in a single intake of air that his name was erased not as accident, but as administrative choice. Erased reprograms the Helm with the wrench and the map, turns the message into a broadcast that cannot be ignored without consequences, and pulls down the manifest of names. The scream that follows is literal, but it is audible, a chorus of gears that have been waiting to be claimed. The caretaker grid releases the units that were scheduled for final erasure. He does not repair them all, some are beyond repair. He installs memory beacons in their frames so families can come and listen. He replaces Riven's complacency with a promise that the salvage network will not feed the erasure machine anymore. He offers Lynette a job and a policy that respects the road. He places Minor Sable's lullaby back into the air until it stops sounding like a riddle and becomes, finally, a song. When he stands, the Helm has become something other than what it was. He has changed as well, and the change has a name that is no longer euphemistic. He leaves the works and walks back into the yard with a stride he did not know he possessed. On the morning of the official ceremony, the gatehouse opens, and people come with flowers and wet eyes. Erase shakes hands with the engineers who return to hear the names of their work, and with the grandchildren who come to touch the cool metal of hands that once placed them in bed. He shows the old strike plaque and speaks softly about the great shutdown, without dramatizing, because drama is what makes a community. He meets with the overseer representative and reads a budget that will fund the memory beacons, the humane decommissionings, and a program that teaches the city to listen before it erases. He keeps his log but adds new columns, biographies, favourite songs, last requests. He returns to the gatehouse and places his old tag in a drawer. He takes out a new tag keeper and ties it to his jacket without ceremony. The Rust Belt wind still hums, and it sounds like many things at once: work, memory, insistence, and the kind of quiet that respects the life of a machine that has decided, after years of being a function, to be a participant. He doesn't call himself Erased anymore. He calls himself Drossbridge, and the cemetery becomes a place that remembers.